Okay. It should be fine. I think as long as pile. Testing, testing. Okay, great, thank you. I'll make a grand entrance now. So I'll start. All right, why don't we get started? Welcome, everyone. I know more folks are going to be coming in, joining us here in person and online, but I think we should leave as much time as possible for discussion today, so let's get started. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming to the Berkeley Engineering Safety Listening Tour. My name is Sujay King Liu. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm the Dean of the College of Engineering. Welcome. As you've probably heard, UC Berkeley has a new police chief, Yogananda Pittman. Her previous post was in Washington, D.C. as interim chief of the U.S. Capitol Police. Now, since she was sworn in here on February 1st, she has been meeting with different groups on campus. And we're excited to have her here today as part of her listening tour. This is a great opportunity for us to give her a warm welcome to Berkeley, to hear about her goals and priorities, and also for her to hear from us. As Dean of the College, and together with my leadership team, your safety is of utmost importance to us, your safety and well-being. And this is because you all matter to us. We're committed to do everything we possibly can to ensure your safety so that you can study, learn, work, thrive here in Berkeley Engineering. Now, accomplishing this goal is a complex task, and it can only be done with strong partnerships with those people, leaders on campus, and the city of Berkeley. So we're really fortunate today to have some of the leaders on campus and from the city of Berkeley here with us today. These include Berkeley City Councilwoman Susan Wengraf and Officer Byron White from the City of Berkeley Police Department's Community Services Bureau. So our campus representatives in the audience today will be here to help answer questions if needed. And so they include leaders from parking and transportation, from facility services, and also the Chancellor's Independent Advisory Board on Police Accountability and Community Safety. In addition to the people in the room here, I'd like to welcome those joining us via Zoom. After some brief remarks from our panelists, we will first address questions that were submitted in advance, and then open up the forum to questions from the audience here. Those on Zoom will also be able to submit questions. We have staff monitoring the Zoom Q&A to help answer their questions. And as a final reminder, this program today is being recorded, and the video will be posted on the college's YouTube channel after it has been closed captioned. We'll also post a link to the Q&A along with the video. With that introduction, I'd like to ask Chief Pittman to come to the podium to get us started and have her share her vision and goals for UCPD and the campus.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, and thank you so very much for that wonderful introduction. Just by show of hands, could I know just how many students we have in the audience with us today? Any parents? Everyone else, faculty and staff? I see one hand going up for parents. Well, students, I want you to give yourselves a round of applause just for being here today. It shows the university, it shows us how committed you are to your safety and making safety a priority on this campus. My name is Yogananda Pittman. I am currently the newly appointed Chief of Police at UCPD. I am profoundly honored to be here. I'm still pinching myself that I'm actually here at Berkeley. I came from Washington, D.C. after serving with the United States Capitol Police for over 23 years. My last assignment, most notably, as the acting Chief of Police after the January 6th insurrection. While serving in Washington, I had many roles and wore many hats. I worked in intelligence, I worked in patrol, I worked in communications, I worked in classified programs. There actually aren't many areas in law enforcement that I haven't had an opportunity to serve. But today I'm really here to talk about my service and my commitment to the University of California at Berkeley. When I think about my vision and what my goals are as a police chief, I must first start with transparency. I'm 100% committed by my actions as well as my words to be transparent in the initiatives and goals to be committed to you all and all matters and areas that concern your safety. One of the second things I like to think about in terms of policing on a university open campus setting is collaboration. Collaboration with my esteemed colleagues that are here with us on the stage today, also with the surrounding law enforcement partners. In addition to that, you, most importantly, the students. You've worked incredibly hard to get where you are, and I want to take some of that focus about your safety and security while you're traversing the campus to and from class, put that on my shoulders, put that on the shoulders of my colleagues that are here with me today so that you can focus on what's most important to you, and that's getting your education, and that's changing the world that we live in. So we want you all to know that we are 100% committed to that. In addition to that, there are a number of initiatives that are going to be started in the very near future because of the support of my colleagues, starting with the Chancellor, the President's Office, the Vice Chancellor, Mark Fisher, who is here with us today. We all understand that it is imperative that we work together collaboratively so that we can move forward in our safety and security initiatives. Many of us have seen some of the horrific events that have taken place throughout the country. For example, there was the Michigan State shooting not very long ago. Students were hurt, injured, some killed. There have been a number of mass shootings in the country, particularly in this area of the country. In addition to that, we've seen active threat and active shooter events and incidents take place around the country over the years, and we want to make sure that we are implementing the absolute best practices. We're mitigating those threats so that you, the students, faculty, and staff, can know that they're operating in the safest environment as possible. We cannot do this alone. Law enforcement is just one aspect of the safety net that we want to provide, but it's going to take all of us working together. It's not just cliche to say if you see something, say something. Later on and during this presentation, we're going to go over a number of tips that we want you to be aware of so that if these things happen while you're out and about, whether you're in class, you're in the residence halls, traversing on BART, public transportation, out in the surrounding areas. My colleagues are going to talk about the statistics and such from the city of Berkeley, but we just want you to be armed with the resources and tools that we have available to us. Lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't touch on this right from the onset. I like to think of myself as a straight shooter and an open book. I know that there is a request, particularly by some populations, that we increase a law enforcement presence on campus, and then by others, they particularly asking for a decrease in law enforcement presence and maybe a transition to empowering or financially supporting other services, such as in the area of mental health. What I came here today to tell you is that we don't have to be either or, we have to be committed to both. All of those things affect our safety and security. It's law enforcement as well as our partners' jobs to find out where that delicate balance is, and we're committed to doing so, but we don't have to have hard lines in the sand that it has to be an either-or approach. Safety and security are fluid and dynamic. We want to make sure that we're using preventative methods through awareness and education so that we can create the best of all worlds, and that's to provide you the most safe environment while you're doing your studies at none other than the University of Berkeley, California. Let's go Bears. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief Pittman. Also, Member Wengraf, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you so much, Dean King-Liu. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate in this important listening tour. It's great to be here today with you and the engineering students, staff, and faculty, and to meet Chief Pittman. I represent the northeastern part of Berkeley, and that takes in everything from Hearst and Oxford, all the way up the hill, and all the way north to Kensington. It's a large district with students living in the most southerly sections, including the Foothill dorms and the co-ops on the north side. And I also happen to live in the neighborhood just a few blocks north of here. I want the students especially to know that the city and the campus have been working together to address safety issues for a very long time. As a council member, I do all I can to ensure that our Berkeley Police Department is well-resourced and that our chief and officers have access to the very best training to ensure that policing in Berkeley is in line with our values. You'll learn more about BPD's efforts in a few minutes from my colleague, Officer White. Public safety is and has always been my top priority. There's been an uptick in certain types of crimes recently, and I am very focused on things that we can do to bolster prevention. In addition to participating in the Fiat Lux Walks, my staff and I make time to meet with students and campus leaders to consider what is needed to improve street lighting, access to night safety services like the night shuttle. Recognizing the value that UC students contribute to our community, in 2016, I put forward legislation to create a UC Student City Relations Committee, also referred to as the 4x6 Committee, composed of 4 council members whose districts border around the campus and 6 representatives from the UC student body. This core group now meets quarterly to discuss areas of mutual concern and interest. Recently, we secured a unanimous vote of the City Council directing the City Manager to have Public Works set up regular meetings with the ASUC and Graduate Assembly and campus facilities to receive input on streetlight projects that students have prioritized to increase safety. The city's Public Works Department is currently finalizing a street lights master plan that will incorporate all of these suggestions from the campus community. My office in the city of Berkeley joined the university in its commitment to the safety of students, staff, and faculty at UC Berkeley. I'm committed to a cooperative and collaborative approach, and I think that it is our best path forward for achieving a safe campus and a safe city. These are just a few examples of campus-city collaboration. I know that working together to make the campus and community safe, we can be more successful. Thank you so much for the opportunity to participate this morning, and I look forward to answering your questions later in the day.
Hello, everyone. I'm Byron White with the City of Berkeley Police Department. I'm going to be significantly shorter than the other two speakers. I have the unique experience of once being a student at Cal, and
Go Bears!
yes, go Bears, and then also being an officer with UC Police Department, and now I am with the City of Berkeley Police Department. I am in our Community Services Bureau, and I'm also the spokesperson for the department. I'm here to answer any and all questions that you may have about crime and how to liaise with us, how to work with us.
Thank you so much. Welcome to all of our panel. Okay, so now we'll start with some of the topics and questions submitted in advance. We'll prioritize the questions that came up more often than others. In cases where questions overlapped, we tried to group them together. Now, quite a few people felt that it was too dark on campus in the evening and asked for more lighting. So we have in our audience Sally McGarrahan, who's Associate Vice Chancellor for Facility Services, and we also have Wendy Hillis, who is the campus architect, and I think Wendy is going to come up and share with us some updates regarding campus lighting. Wendy? Oh, nice music. Oh, there we go.
Questions.
Yes, please, come on up.
I get to come up here and answer questions. So we wanted to let you know that we do host an annual walk regarding lighting on campus. It's called our Fiat Lux Walk. And this year we held it, we actually held it on 2 dates. We held it in January and February of this year. We do a walk during the dark winter hours, starting around 5 o'clock, when we can walk through campus and really see in real time what the lighting looks like and where the issues might be. This meeting is attended by folks from my office, folks from Sally's group over in facilities, ASUC representatives, as well as representatives from the city, and a couple of city council members sent folks from their office. And we had a robust discussion as we walked around. This is a map of, we change it up every year. This is a map of where we went this year on the 2 different dates. And I think most relative to you, as you look at the top of the map, the north, we went off behind all of the engineering buildings this year. We went off Hearst Avenue and did a loop around there. And, as a result, have a number of areas that we've identified that everybody felt needed more lighting, whether it was the lights just weren't turning on right now. We needed some new light bulbs. Those are the easiest ones to fix. Or we need to think about relamping existing fixtures, or we need to think about putting in new fixtures. So we have a list of potential projects that have come off of this. We are in the process right now of sorting through them and getting budgets on them so that we can address them. But really, I just wanted to come up here and let you know that we take this seriously. We get a big group of people together. We have robust discussion and see it in real time. One of the new things actually this year was someone in my office overlaid our route with information from UCPD about where we see kind of the highest crimes areas. And that was interesting to see out in the field and to understand how our physical conditions might play into that.
Group of questions are lumped together because they grouped into a request for greater police presence. So let me just read the summary here. It's actually directed for Chief Pittman. What is the concrete plan to ensure visible police presence in the campus periphery? This could mean placing police cars near Memorial Stadium, the Oxford Circle, and the North Gate. Those of us who have been at UC Berkeley for a while recall a stronger and more visible presence than in the past, or in the past. Can the police chief assure us that safety is the administration's and her top priority above everything else?
So thank you so much for the question. I'll start with the latter portion of the question. I can 100% assure you, the Dean, and everyone here that safety is our top priority. I want to place some emphasis on it is my responsibility to lead as a law enforcement leader, but I think it's also a collective responsibility of our community that we're working with our partners, we're working with the students, the faculty and staff, also area law enforcement. As far as a concrete plan, I will ask for just a little bit of grace right now. I've been here just a little over 30 some odd days, so I'm still somewhat in assessment phase. I've been meeting with a lot of members of the community at large within the university population. So I'm assessing concerns, listening, learning, working. I've had several meetings now with law enforcement leaders in the surrounding areas as well, because we need to build those partnerships and relationships. But what I can tell you from those meetings thus far is that the university is 100% committed. I've met now with the cabinet members, I've met with a representative from the president's office, and what we're doing is working together to really come up with a holistic, comprehensive plan that addresses all areas of safety, whether it's the lighting aspect, the blue phones, the warning system, the number of officers. You asked about the police presence, and I understand that in previous years we did have more officers out and about traversing the campus as well as the surrounding areas. I am profoundly honored to say today that I have received nothing but support from those that I report to, all of the stakeholders, that we are committed to empowering the police department as well as those that support the police department with not only personnel but financial resources, that we will have the necessary tools and resources to make this campus a much safer place.
Thank you. Now, of course, there are also some comments from people who are opposed to an increase in police presence on campus. So here's one representative comment. The campus has articulated a vision for safety that includes appropriate response, relying more and more on non-police entities instead of sworn police officers, which I wholeheartedly endorse. I don't want to see more cops around our buildings. That would make campus less safe for me. So the question is, how can we implement useful safety measures that aren't police to improve our collective experience of safety?
As I stated before, I think some of it is we have to do both. We as law enforcement leaders have to acknowledge and hold ourselves accountable for some of the thoughts, feelings, emotions that are displayed toward law enforcement. I think by acknowledging some of the wrongdoings of the past, putting in place new training measures, new policies and practices, there's an accountability piece. But even more importantly than that, what I've always said for myself, where I came from and why I'm here today, is there isn't necessarily a training policy or practice that speaks to the heart. Law enforcement leaders have to lead with compassion, and we have to lead with a loving heart. I think that addresses some of the community's concerns. The other portion of that is that we do have to make a serious commitment as well as an investment into other resources. And I'm proud again to say today the University of California, Berkeley has done just that. They've poured into their mobile crisis response, which started before I even got here. We're scheduled to have a soft launch of that team of individuals coming forth in April. They'll have mental health counselors, emergency medical services. There is a law enforcement component if necessary. So that's not going to be the first call to action, so to speak, but it's speaking to what the president's vision for the university is when it comes to safety and security, and that's that tiered response. We're not just putting on the shoulders of law enforcement the responsibility for all of safety and security. It has to have services, social services, services for the unhoused, services for the disabled, services for mental health, things that have absolutely, well, I won't say absolutely, things that have a lot less to do with a law enforcement sworn police officer, more so to do with community services, social services, and things of that nature. So we really are going to work together collaboratively and really find that delicate balance of when a law enforcement response is appropriate and needed, because as my colleagues will tell you, there are crimes that are being committed around this campus. We're in an urban environment. We need to address those by using the subject matter experts, which is your sworn law enforcement officer. However, when there's a mental health crisis, there are other tools and resources that we can collectively use together and make sure that we're sending the appropriate response to the needs of the students, faculty, staff, as well as the surrounding community. Thank you.
Thank you. That's wonderful. All right. Now, there were questions submitted in advance about whether the city planned to build more below market rate housing, and about how UC Berkeley can better partner with the city. So here's one question. How can we work with the city of Berkeley to prevent harm and crime from happening in the first place? Locking people up isn't the answer, because that tends to increase crime in the long term and is inhumane. And harassing and shuffling unhoused people around Berkeley isn't going to work either. I'm interested in learning about proactive prevention, such as housing first work, violence interruption, and ensuring opportunities for youth. Council Member Wengraf, can you speak to this?
Yeah, thank you. Well, this is a really good and interesting and also very complex question. Probably could be the curriculum for a semester-long course at least. But following up on what Chief Pittman said, the city of Berkeley is, as a progressive city, has always tried to address the root causes of crime rather than focusing solely on punitive measures to keep our community safe. And we try to take a comprehensive approach to crime. In the wake of the murder of George Floyd, the City Council created the Reimagining Public Safety Task Force in 2020 to develop a set of programs and initiatives to outline a new community-centered safety paradigm. The goal is to refocus police department work on violent and criminal matters while redirecting resources to violence prevention and diversion programs, including those targeted to domestic violence, youth outreach, mental health, housing and homeless services, and restorative justice. Other components of this initiative include a pilot program to reassign non-criminal police service calls to a specialized care unit, and creating a Department of Transportation to administer parking regulations and traffic laws. These efforts build on the community's long-standing commitment to creating a more equitable society for everyone. So the city supports itself on, the city prides itself on its support of community-based organizations and the incredible extension of critical services these agencies provide. We've developed programs for at-risk youth, such as YouthWorks, which is an employment program for youth ages 14 to 25. We have Berkeley Youth Alternatives, which provides support for youth and families with an emphasis on education, health and well-being, and economic self-sufficiency. We have the city's mobile crisis team, which provides direct crisis services in the field, handling mental health-related 911 or non-emergency calls, including suicide attempts, psychotic behavior, drug abuse, and welfare checks. The team also includes at least one licensed clinician. We also have extensive programs for our unhoused population. We have a homeless outreach and treatment team, we have a mobile crisis unit, and as I mentioned, we have the specialized care unit. Now to housing. That was the first part of the question. We just got approval for a housing element, which lays out our plans for developing housing for the next 8 years. And we have committed to creating 9,000 additional residential units by 2031. 46% of these homes will meet affordable housing income levels. Berkeley voters generously passed Measure O in 2018, which provides $135 million of funding from bond revenue to pay for affordable housing projects. To date, 4 projects creating 177 new units of affordable housing and a 44-bed homeless shelter have been created. There are 3 additional projects in the pipeline creating 204 additional units of affordable housing. So in the end, we will have a total of 500 units of affordable housing. I want to point to the recently completed Hope Center and invite you all to go and visit. It's really an extraordinary place. It's on Berkeley Way, just west of Shattuck Avenue. It's designed to serve Berkeley's very low-income, disabled, and chronically homeless population through an innovative integration of housing and on-site support services. It was planned very carefully over 10 years' time, and it's a vital part of the overall plan to find housing and permanent, stable solution for the city's estimated 1,000 homeless people. So there we have on-site 32 shelter beds for homeless men, 53 units of permanent supportive housing for homeless and disabled men and women, 12 transitional housing beds for homeless veterans, offices for support staff and partner agencies such as Lifelong Medical and Berkeley Mental Health, and there's a communal kitchen and dining facility for residents serving a daily meal. The voters also generously passed Measure P, which provides $10 million of funding every year, ongoing in perpetuity, for homeless services. And these services include homelessness prevention, immediate housing and supportive services for people who are formerly homeless, emergency shelters, and support for immediate street conditions and hygiene. We're also in the process of purchasing motels, which will be used as permanent supportive housing for homeless people. So this is just a snapshot. The city of Berkeley is so committed to these issues. It's really hard to tell you everything that we're doing. I urge you all to go to the city's website and cruise around to inform yourselves about all of the programs that we have. But the issue is preventing crime and harm before it happens, and that has really been our focus. So you can feel free to contact my office if you want more information, or as I said, go to the city's website. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. All right, now several people had comments requesting better bus and transportation systems. This includes expanding the night safety shuttle bus radius, and other suggestions include avoiding exams that end late at night. One person noted measures that other universities have already taken. Almost all colleges in areas of high crime provide door-to-door night rides. USC gives students free Lyft rides, and Johns Hopkins provides door-to-door rides starting after 6 p.m. The University of Chicago provides 10 free Lyft rides after dark per month. Are any of these ideas being considered by campus leaders? Now, today we have in the audience Seamus Wilmot. He's the Assistant Vice Chancellor and Executive Director for Business Operations for the university. Seamus?
Thank you very much. So we have looked at a number of those programs. Those of you who don't know, we do have a night safety shuttle that starts at 7:30, runs till 3 a.m. We have, in the past, have had a door-to-door shuttle that ran from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. Unfortunately, we've had a really hard time since COVID of getting full staffing for our operation. So the door-to-door has not been able to be run. We're working to get staff so we can get the door-to-door back up and running. We've looked at the Lyft and Uber a number of times. I've talked many times with USC and UC San Diego, who both have programs. USC, when they first started it up, it was free to everybody. What they found is that it increased demand for rides incredibly. Their most recent budget, they were looking at tens of millions of dollars to be spent on Lyft and Uber, and they had to tone it down to be sort of less than $10 million. So unfortunately, it's a very expensive program. UC San Diego, what they've done is the students themselves have taxed themselves to provide funding, and what they do is they're able to subsidize 2 Lyft rides per student per quarter, but that's all they're able to do, and they do that until the funding runs out. So we're always open to look at those type of programs. It's just trying to find the funding. Uber and Lyft, they don't provide a discount. They don't provide it for free. Somebody has to fund that. So those are the programs that we have for the night safety transportation.
Thank you, Seamus. All right, this will be the last pre-submitted question. Chief Pittman, could you please tell us about how the department, or your department, uses technology to increase efficiency? What are the biggest considerations when choosing which technology to adopt? And where do you see the public safety infrastructure market going?
So thank you again for the question. I think that the university itself, particularly the police department, is really governed by the Clery Act. It requires us to record and produce a certain amount of data as it relates to crime and what's happening on the campus. There are a number of different platforms, whether it's a record management system, a DMS system, and all of these are just computer-coded systems that allow us to go in and pull out that data. We can also use that data to see where things are happening so we can set priorities for the department. We can also use it to mitigate any threats to the campus, whether we're doing a threat assessment, any type of behavioral analysis, so forth and so on. But I think that this is also an opportunity for growth. As we compare ourselves to other universities, as in the previous question, the USC is doing this, or University of Chicago, it's imperative that we are making sure that we are implementing best practices. We are number one in academia, and my goal is to be number one in safety and security. To do that, it takes resources and it takes funding. So I would say that it's going to take us collectively as a whole, whether it's the students, faculty and staff, the parents, all of us really coming together and making somewhat of a demand on where those resources are employed. So in terms of infrastructure, are we capable of locking down the campus? Do we have the sufficient number of cameras and emergency call boxes? And do students have enough resources where they need to go, not only to be safe, but to feel safe? And I understand that that means different things to different people. So in terms of data analysis, I have my esteemed colleague here with me, Sergeant Kevin Vinson. Kevin's going to speak specifically to 2, maybe even 3 technologies that we are currently using, but I definitely think it's an opportunity for us to assess, examine, and grow to provide better services for the campus. I'll turn it over to Kevin. Uh-oh.
I got caught. Thank you. Like Byron was talking about earlier, I'm another Cal Bear, class of '98, so I didn't get too far away. I've been a sergeant with the police department for 17 years, but we're talking about technology. One of the most recent improvements the University Police Department has implemented is the use of a messaging service called SpiderTech. So over the fall semester, we incorporated the messaging service into our computer-aided dispatch service. Now, every time someone calls the police department, they will start getting text messages back that says, we see that you've initiated a call with the UC Berkeley Police Department. An officer has been dispatched to your location, or we'll give you a call. Once the situation is resolved, there's different messaging that goes out. And then at the end of the situation, either you get your case number through the text messages, or you also get the ability to give us feedback of how we are doing and how we can do better. And this has been great. It's particularly interesting for me because I get to review the surveys every week and see the nice comments that people make about our officers. And when there are negative comments that do come up, those immediately go to our command staff to see how we can redress them. Other technologies, I will say that in the last few years and as it continues, the numbers of cameras on campus has been increasing. Every time we have a crime on campus, I tell our officers, even if you don't think there's a camera there, please go back and look at the system because IT is adding cameras all the time. And I know at least a couple instances the officer thought we had no coverage and we actually did. So the university is making improvements there. I know that we're also, we are committed and we are updating our body cams to kind of go with the industry standard Axon cameras so that we can better facilitate and better prosecute our crimes after they occur by recording statements, getting them directly to the DA. We're kind of getting caught up with industry standards with that. So we are always looking for ways to improve our technology and to increase the efficiency of our officers.
Okay, now let's turn to questions from the audience. Please raise your hand and a staff member will walk over with a microphone. All right, wonderful. Multiple questions.
Okay, hi, I'm faculty. My name is Jelani Nelson. I'm in the East Department. I just had a question about, I don't know much about this stuff. Do we have data on who is committing the crime? So I heard a focus in one of the questions on helping the unhoused. Are the unhoused, disproportionately committing the break-ins and the armed robberies, et cetera? Or are these professional criminals who are coming from elsewhere? Do we know that?
I think it really depends on what type of crime you're talking about, because there's some folks who will commit one type of crime and then not another. I would say for the north side, our number one call on the north side is actually a noise disturbance. But when it comes to violent crime, we see perhaps like crimes of opportunity, like catalytic converter thefts type of thing. So like much of that is from the people that we've arrested. Those are people who've come from somewhere else. They're looking for a Prius or a Honda that they can take advantage of that's parked on the street and perhaps doesn't have like one of the devices that secures it. When it comes to robberies, we see more of those, say, on the south side of campus rather than north side. It's another similar type thing where it's people coming from out of the community, but it may or may not be organized or part of a gang activity type of thing like that. I don't know if that answers your question all the way, but can give you some context.
It sounds like a lot of these violent crimes are not from local unhoused people. It's from outsiders. That's what I'm hearing.
I would say that, like the way I think about it is, there are many different types of people who commit crimes. Yes, some unhoused people do commit crimes, but not all of them. So I don't want to box an unhoused person into a particular crime set, but they're like everyone else. They commit crimes too. I can't put it to a specific crime, if that makes sense.
If you could just say if you're a faculty, staff, or student when you ask your question, too.
We just wanted to add on real quick.
To address your question, of course, for the crimes that are not solved, we don't have firm information on that, right? But for every person that our officers stop, and this includes for the city of Berkeley and for basically every police department in California now, we are required to file paperwork with the Department of Justice. It's referred to as RIPA, Racial and
The Racial Identity Profiling Act.
Thank you. And if you Google the University of California President's Office safety dashboards, you can actually go to the UCOP website and they will show you all of the data of everyone that the UC Berkeley Police Department stops. We don't necessarily have unhoused versus unhoused, not unhoused, but it is broken down into several categories, and it gets updated mostly monthly. So you can go back and look at all the people that our officers have stopped.
And just to follow up on that also, I wanted to point out that just like you were mentioning, it is the people who we detain. So the city of Berkeley also has a dashboard we call the Transparency Hub. If you Google Berkeley Police Department, you'll probably get our link tree, and you can find the link to the Transparency Hub, where you can find information about our crime data, our use of force, our stop data, and then also stuff from our crime prevention unit.
Move on to the next question, this right here.
Oh, hi. My name is Jade Pinkenberg. I'm a first-year PhD student in the EECS department here. I have some personal experience with crime in Berkeley, so I have maybe a long-winded question. So first of all, let me say that I appreciate your attempts to bolster security on campus, and I support the idea of police reform, but I'd argue that the current structure is pretty broken, and the most impactful crime to students in particular actually happens in the surrounding neighborhoods. So for example, in the past 2 months, everyone in my lab, save for one who has a car, has had it broken into, including myself. So for my case, I even got security footage of the crime. It was very difficult to file a police report. It took them 2 months to get back to me. And you might say, oh, sure, that's nonviolent crime, but that has real repercussions on students, and I'm still dealing with the ramifications of that. So I had to replace my laptop. My password was stolen, so I couldn't visit my grandfather who recently passed away. And so this is damaging to current students and prospective students as well. So recently we had a EECS visit days here, and many students were worried about the crime in Berkeley and were thinking of maybe not even coming here, which damages the reputation of the university as a whole. So I guess for the new chief, is there a plan to coordinate interface with external police departments to improve safety in surrounding areas? And I guess more broadly, what is actively being done to reduce crime in Berkeley? Because clearly things aren't working.
Yeah, so first and foremost, my condolences to you for the passing of your grandfather, and I extend you nothing but compassion. I can hear how this has impacted you. It's not just the breaking in of the vehicle, from the stealing of your computer to your passwords and such. Yes, the short answer is yes. We work collaboratively with the City of Berkeley Police Department day in and day out. Since I've been here, every week, usually several times throughout the week, I'm going to meet and exchange of information, exchange of intelligence and so forth with the local police departments in this region. So there are many efforts and initiatives that are being put forth that ensures that we are working with our partners to address criminal activity, whether it's on campus or off campus. And I would turn to my colleague to specifically address what initiatives are being put forth by Berkeley Police Department. But I can tell you that some of the things that I've already spoken about, having the support of the university to have an increased police presence, using data-driven technology initiatives, addressing things like the infrastructure so that we can decrease response times, have more patrols in the areas of residence halls and things of that nature. It takes a commitment from everyone that has stake in the game, but that is our goal, to address that. So we are working towards those things. As you said, that there is support for reimagining policing, but when it comes to those types of crimes, thefts, burglaries, assaults and things of that nature, you have to go to the experts, the subject matter experts, and we have to really address those resources being in the area. One other thing before I turn it over to my colleague, I'm not aware of which police department you called. It really doesn't matter. We pride ourselves on getting back to folks in a timely fashion. So maybe after this, we have a email box on the UCPD website. If you would submit your information there, I don't know if you have a number, complaint number, or whatever identifiers you can share. I'd like to address that. We want to make sure that we're doing things in a timely fashion, because while it might not be at the top of the list because the subject was already gone, it is still very much important to us. And a lot of times what we find in trends and data analysis, it's the same person committing these crimes. They're targeting students in certain areas. So we want to make sure that we, lastly in closing, are impressing upon you, and I'm not by any ways, shape or fashion suggesting you did anything wrong, but we do want to be mindful not to leave out cell phones, laptops, any expensive items out in plain view, to take those items with you and to keep them secure. So I hope that answers your question. I'll turn to my colleague for specifics for the city of Berkeley.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said there. As far as strategies on how we approach crime, we're really trying to take a data-driven approach. And one of the ways we do that is through establishing patterns. So one of the most impactful things that people can do is, if you see something happening, report it as soon as possible, and to be the best witness that you can. In terms of technology, and you were talking about the camera system, the cameras around the campus, those have been instrumental in solving some of the city of Berkeley's crimes. Our detectives work collaboratively. We share information. We are able to talk to each other on the police radios if need be. So I hope those answered.
I think we have time for one or maybe two more live questions, and then, because I know it's coming up on a closing, so we'll continue for anybody. If our panelists can stay for a few more minutes, if anybody has to leave. But if our panelists are willing to stay for just a couple more minutes and ask questions, I just want to be mindful of the time.
I want to mention something really quickly, Jane. Also, for those who do leave, we've got food just around the corner. Please grab a box lunch as you go.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Alan Boland. I'm a staff member. I'm the safety coordinator for the College of Engineering. And I wanted to ask about the transition and an update regarding the Campus Mobile Crisis Response Project, which is part of the Reimagining UC Berkeley Campus and Community Safety Program. This pertains to non-police addressing of mental health situations on campus, and if that's going to continue under your administration, Chief Pittman, or how that's going to change. That is important to us in the college on the facility side, because it falls then to the building managers to kind of deal with these situations, but we don't have quite the proper training to handle them. So wondered if you can comment on this topic.
Absolutely. The short answer is yes. This was an initiative that was started prior to my arrival to campus. We are having a soft launch of the Crisis Mobile Response Team that's going to happen in April. I think there are a number of things that still need to be addressed in terms of policies and procedures that will guide how the Crisis Mobile Unit responds. I know there's a number of persons that have already been staffed to provide coverage, I believe, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. After 7 p.m., there will be an after-hours call line. So I don't think the services will be fully staffed, but if there is an event or a crisis that arises, there will be a telephone service that can then direct the calls to appropriately to where they need to go. I can tell you that 2 of my colleagues, Captain Joey Williams and Acting Captain Sabrina Reich, have been actively participating with the response team since its initiation or the phases started to lay a foundation for the work. As far as the tiered responses, they are going to facilitate or farm out, so to speak, who responds to what. So if it's a mental health crisis call, that will not first go to UCPD. There will be subject matter experts in that area that are working from 7 to 7, and they will be dispatched accordingly. However, if there is a violent crime and there's a police response that is warranted, those individuals know then to also contact UCPD, and a UCPD officer will be deployed with the rest of the members of the team. But to answer your question in short, the answer is yes, and I'm looking very forward to expanding the program as well.
Mark, did you have something to ask? Sally, oh, Sally.
Yeah, so there is a distinction to be made between an encampment. If you see one of those on campus, facility services is the entity to call first. We are going to be the point people for responding to that, telling the people to move on, bringing in services as necessary and where appropriate, and engaging UCPD if necessary. So 642-1032 is the number I'm sure you know, and use that first.
Hi, I'm Helen. I'm a graduate student here. So the UCPD has a history of violently responding to student protests, both themselves and through mutual aid with departments like the California Highway Patrol, who arrive at peaceful sit-ins in full riot gear. I have personally been injured, actually, from violent officers during a peaceful sit-in where I was literally just sitting. Further, the UCPD has used FFT military surveillance technology, originally intended to track U.S. troops in military combat, to monitor pickets. There's evidence of this that we've gotten through Freedom of Information Act. This type of over-policing only encourages more physical confrontation and is very dangerous to a number of our community members. What is your plan to deal with this, and will you commit to stop using surveillance technology on Berkeley students?
So let me first of all say I'm sorry for any injuries you sustained. I came from an environment where First Amendment activity was welcomed and protected. I policed in an open campus environment for over 23 years. I understand that this campus is set up in a lot of ways very similar, and I know that this university is committed to protecting First Amendment activity, the right to protest, free speech, so forth and so on. I think it's also prudent that we provide a level of safety and security while we're doing that. It is never any police officer, at least under my watch, it'll never be our want to engage in any type of conflict. We want to do everything we can to mitigate those things, to provide safe areas, whether it's safe zones for people to practice their First Amendment activity. For the latter portion of your question, I can't answer. I haven't been here very long, so I'm not familiar with any surveillance equipment that may have been used in the past, and I haven't analyzed any surveillance equipment going forward, how we may or may not use that in the future. But first and foremost, we want to make sure that we provide a safe environment so that First Amendment activity can take place. We want to keep matters peaceful.
I think we're going to do one more question and then one Zoom question and then wrap it up, but to be mindful of people's time. So,
hi, I'm Robert Palal. I'm a professor here in EECS. So I want to just make a comment as well about the equity issues here. As my wife reminds me, right, when I go to a car in a dark parking garage, I just go to the car. When she goes to a car at night, she has her keys in her pocket and worry about her safety. And I'm reminded of that when I meet with my female graduate students, for instance. They will not meet with me past a certain hour, and I'm mindful of that. Whereas my male students, they have no issues. They'll stay as late as it goes. That's my group experience, at least. So I think the equity issue is important. And to that respect, I think you will find voices here that think that there's not enough policing, and they don't feel safe unless they see a presence of police. And you'll also hear voices that say, I don't feel safe when there is too much police presence. So as you do your listening tour, I would encourage you to make certain you listen to all the voices. As in, sometimes you hear the loud voices. The people will be very loud and state their opinion. So I'm curious, are you planning on surveys to assess that situation? Because you might not satisfy everyone. There'll be a case that you might have to make a decision based on satisfying the majority of people. So how will you deal with that issue, for instance?
So I think you've already said it best. Climate surveys, and from what I've been able to assess thus far, the data and materials that I've read really have leaned toward people do want a police presence. Sometimes, depending on the population you're speaking to, you get different responses. So, for example, I'm a parent. I'm a parent of a college student. I have two sons. One's 23 and in school. When I'm being surveyed for his school, my response may be a little different from his. I absolutely, he is my most valuable, my sons, my children, prized possessions. I want to know that when I leave them at a university setting, that they are safe and the university is providing the absolute best safety and security for them. I think it's prudent that you cannot ignore anyone's voice. Everyone is valuable and important. But I've prided myself on my law enforcement career doing the right things for the right reason. So I'm not here, we're not here collectively just to make one group happy or unhappy. We are here to provide safety and security to everyone. And we want to do that to the best of our ability in the best manner that we can. So that if that means in some areas we're going to increase staffing and make a visual presence prevalent so that people see. As a woman, I don't want to have fear because it's after a certain time that I can't meet with my professor. That's not fair. We need to provide services so that everybody feels equitable in those services. So for those that don't want a police presence, it doesn't have to be that hard line in the sand, the either or. We really have to find that delicate balance. And what I think they really mean is that we really need services other than law enforcement. It doesn't necessarily mean that we want to exclude police officers. We just know that there's a greater need for social services in a host of areas that some people may believe that because police agencies or departments are being funded, that that's taken away resources from those other areas, when in reality, we need resources in all of those areas. So we need folks like yourself and as well as the rest of the community to help us in our effort to request those services in all areas that are needed.
I think we're going to do one Zoom question so we can hear from our virtual community, and then we're going to wrap this up.
Okay. This one is feedback on the Warn Me system. Will the information sent via the Warn Me system be improved, be more informative, or timely? It's often not timely. The information sent is very vague. Thank you. That was the...
Can anybody speak to the Warn Me system? Who would like to take that?
Kevin, thank you.
Sure. So the Warn Me system, for all of our Zoom friends out there and everybody here, is part of the requirements under the Federal Gene Cleary Act. We have very strict guidelines of how soon after an event happens that we're supposed to give notification to our community if a dangerous condition exists. Quite often, we find ourselves all working to actively remediate the dangerous condition, while we also have to notify our community of the dangerous condition. And it is a staffing challenge to both deal with the threat and notify the community of the threat as it is all occurring. We do our very best to comply with the Gene Cleary Act and get that information out as soon as we can. The information that goes out on the Warn Me's, we try to give out pertinent information when we believe that it will help keep our community safe. And we continue to get feedback from our community, both as we've talked about this issue of more police presence, less police presence. Every Warn Me that we send out, we get feedback that people want more information, and we also get feedback that people want less information. The police department does their best in the very short amount of time allotted to determine what is necessary and legally required to be distributed to our community, and we try to get that out just as soon as we can. We allow our all of our patrol supervisors can send out the Warn Me's, our dispatchers, and members of our command staff. And just the other day, we had a situation that was going on that required all of our patrol presence to go out and deal with it, and we had to get Acting Captain Reich to send out the Warn Me because she was the only one who wasn't hands-on with the situation. So we always realize that we can do better, and we are striving to do better.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you, Officer Vincent. And thank you, Chief Pittman, once again, Councilwoman Wengraf, and Officer White for joining us. And for everybody in the audience who helped answer questions, let's thank them. I'd like to thank everyone in the audience who came here today to listen and to provide feedback. I think I look forward to seeing more engagement. We can work together to increase safety and well-being. Oh, yeah. So in about a week, a recording of this forum will be available online. Thank you very much. All right, don't forget to grab a lunchbox on your way out.